Provocative Podcast. Okay, guys, we have a guest today, but before we get into the introduction for that, I have a little introduction about the event that I talked about last week. So it's official. We're going to throw the provocative event. I am still working on names, but I'm almost 100% sure it's going to be on this date. So mark your calendars. 11/11, guys, November 11th in Houston, the provocative event. It will be a smaller event. This is our first event, so I want to limit it to about 200 people. So I am probably going to do like a pre-sale sort of like sell for tickets and stuff like that. So once it's out, get your ticket, because once it's sold out, it's sold out. So if you guys can come to Houston, I would love to have you guys here. It is going to be, I was going back and forth about co-ed or just women empowerment, and I decided we're going to do just women empowerment for our first one, okay? I think it's important. I did start the podcast for us women, so I just want to do that. I will have like a little special surprise for you ladies who want to bring your significant others. I know a lot of you listen to the podcast with your significant others or share it with your significant others. And by significant others, I mean guys, more than girls. Like if your significant other is a woman, she can come to the event. But if your significant other is a man, and you guys like to listen to the podcast and especially like to listen to Chris, there's going to be a little opportunity for you guys to kind of hang out with him and have your own thing with him. But all those details will be out as soon as I have them. But I just wanted to give you guys a date and let you guys know that once tickets go live, it's very limited. So, and I had a ton. It's like literally 1/8 of everyone that said that they would come. So I'm excited to throw this event, and 11/11, mark your calendars. All right, guys. So let's get into today's podcast because I have a lot of questions. I had to break it down a little bit so it wouldn't be too long. All right, guys, let's introduce today's guest, Julia Wang.
Hello.
So a little introduction of her: CEO and broker of Next Gen Real Estate and #1 real estate agent on social media.
Yes.
I was going to ask, so my first question is that, how were you chosen as #1 real estate agent?
So there is a website called Property Spark. So basically they go through, filter all of the agents. For the past, I would say like 5 years, I've been, #1 in Houston, which I'm like, of course, that's a given.
Yeah.
Recently, maybe 3 years ago, it was Texas. I was #1.
Okay.
And then last year was the first year I was #1, like all of the United States, which was really cool.
That is so cool.
It's really cool, and it's great because obviously, this is a list of like the top 100 agents on social media. So a lot of them, we kind of start following each other and kind of networking that way. So I network with a lot of real estate agents in other U.S. cities because of social media.
When you started your company, was social media like a goal of yours, like to build it?
Funny enough. So I started in like 2016. So I actually started social media pretty early, but that's when no one was doing it in real estate. So I was kind of one of the first. I was trying to be a real estate influencer. I don't even know what that meant, but I was like, you know what? Like I'm just going to make these videos like in houses. I'm going to take photos in houses. And I mean, no one was doing it. So I was being made fun of a lot by other real estate agents, by other real estate brokers. And then, I started getting a following. 2020 is when I really kind of, exploded in January because obviously everyone was home and then everyone was trying to do social media, even all of the other real estate agents. And then I was with another brokerage at the time and I just started getting in trouble for my social media a lot just because, I wasn't following the corporate guidelines, corporate standards. They wanted a very cookie cutter agent. So that's kind of when I decided to start my own brokerage. And so now I would say out of all of the local brokerages in Houston, we have the biggest social media reach, and even though we've only been around for 2.5 years, and we have some pretty big agents with large followings on our social media. So we have one agent, she was a former WWE wrestler.
Wow.
Her name is Brooke Adams, and she was like legit, like she like was with The Rock. She trained with like actual WWE wrestling champions. So it's really fun. And I think all of us, we kind of understand that. I mean, how important social media is. Yeah. And a lot of people think, I'm just doing it for fun, but this is really how I generate business. Yeah. And all the 180 agents under me, almost every single one of them found me on social media. So I never really had to like hardcore recruit anyone.
Okay. Yeah. That is so cool. Yeah. My next question was like, when did you start your business? So that is so cool that in 2020 you were like, you know what? I don't want to follow the cookie cutter plan. Let me
Yeah.
start my own. Were you scared?
Oh yeah, it was very scary, but I actually didn't think it would be that big. So
Okay.
I just wanted the freedom to do what I wanted to do without someone telling me what to do or getting mad at me. So it was me, three of my girlfriends who are real estate agents, and I was
Okay.
like, "Hey, let's just do this. We can keep all the commission, and slowly like all of these agents just started coming over, and I think even by, 6 months I had like 75, just come over from social media, and then it kind of
Wow.
catapulted from there. Yeah.
That is so crazy, guys. The power of social media.
It is. And I think now a lot of these real estate brokers and brokerages, they are kind of, before they didn't take me seriously, right?
Yeah.
And then now I think they're really understanding how powerful it is. And I just got back from a pretty big national real estate conference, and almost 80% of what they talked about was social media. And it's so
Yeah.
funny because before they would just laugh about it and say it's not important, and that, and I still, you have your old school brokers that tell real estate agents not to waste their time on social media.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
why they come over to us.
Yeah.
But, I've gotten multi-million dollar listings from social media.
Yeah,
and
I'm
that's
sure.
what people don't realize. Like, I get most of my leads from social media, and that's really what I'm trying to teach my agents, because eventually no one's going to be looking at a magazine or Yellow Pages to get their agent, right? They're
Right.
going to be looking on social media
Yeah.
and finding the one that they connect with the most.
Yeah, well, I mean, nowadays everyone has a phone. Everyone spends most of their time on social media. So not like social media is such a powerful tool for marketing. So I don't understand how there's still old school people thinking, yeah, let me just tell my clients to get leads through a magazine. Like, it doesn't work that way anymore.
Yeah, or cold calling. I'm like,
Yeah.
or door knocking. I'm like,
Yeah.
I cannot imagine door knocking, like walking up to a random door, knocking on it, asking if they want to
Yeah.
sell their home. But it's also, I think, just the older generation, which, it's understandable. They're just scared of change, right? And I think some of them know that they can never do it, or they don't want to even try. So the
Right.
best thing that they can do is just criticize it or make fun
Yeah.
of it, because they don't understand it.
Right. How old were you when you got into real estate, though?
So I actually started late. So a lot
Okay.
of people, I have agents who are in their 20s, early 20s that are real estate agents. I'm like, man, if I started that young, I would be so much more successful now. But I started when I was 30. So
Okay.
right after I was actually pregnant with my second kid. And I was in marketing. So I was doing the whole corporate route, and I was miserable. And so I just decided to join, to get my real estate license. And then from there, it kind of exploded. So I always say it's never too late to start anything new,
Yeah.
right? Because everyone thinks I've been doing this for years and years, and technically it's only been almost 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that you started in your 30s. I think coming from someone, I'll be 29 next week, right? And everyone talks about how if you listen to older people, they tell you 30s is the best, right?
Yeah.
But coming from a younger generation, I guess, and now like everyone on social media who's younger is blowing up, you kind of get scared of getting older. Like
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting older, like is that a bad thing? But now I'm realizing like no, it's a good thing. I feel like I'm just now beginning my life.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
in your 20s we struggled, and I've struggled, and I'm glad that I've struggled in my 20s, because I think a lot of people just use their 20 as my blow off years. I actually like have been working really hard on my 20s, and I feel like now that I'm reaching my 30s, I'm like, okay, I'm getting more excited, because I'm like, these are my good foundation years. This is where I'm going to like build off of. So I
Yeah.
think it's great that you started at your 30s, because I think, like I said, coming from me, I get scared, but it's okay to start something new. Like, just because you're turning a different like age doesn't mean it's too late to start anything. And look at
Oh,
you.
yeah. I mean, I would never go back to my 20s.
Yeah,
Like, there's
yeah,
nothing,
okay.
like, you can't give me any amount of money for me to go
Okay,
back to my 20s.
that's good. Okay.
And I would say, I've been so many different people. I worked my way through college, waitressing. I was a bottle girl. I was a bartender. I did the whole corporate route. So I've been many different people in my life. And I think that's what life is. Like, you don't need to be the same person all the time. And so, maybe in my 40s, I mean, I'm sure I'm going to still be in real estate somewhat, but I'm going to transition into something else. Like, I always think everything's kind of a stepping stone.
Yeah, I agree. I love that.
And I would, to me, if I was still showing houses 20 years later, and I see these real estate agents, literally, they've been doing the same thing for 30 plus years, I would consider that a failure, because I haven't grown in any way, and I've just remained stagnant.
Yeah, true. Did you build your high-end clientele after you left your last company?
So, when I first got, then that was the reason why I joined my last brokerage was because
Okay.
so I started off apartment locating. So I started
Okay.
off showing like $600 apartments, like in not so good neighborhoods. And I was like slowly trying to work my way up. And then I wanted to learn luxury. And that, it's really, really hard to get into luxury real estate because you have to really play the part because people with money, they know other people that have money. They can spot them out. So if they think you're a fraud, they're not going to trust you.
Yeah.
So I really found a good mentor and she was a great mentor for me. And she really taught me the ropes. I had to learn everything. I mean, I didn't even know what name brands were before I started, right? But you have to learn all of that. And not that it's right. I mean, no one wants to be like, oh, you have to be materialistic, but that's just the world of luxury real estate, right? So I had to learn all of that slowly, little by little. I started, getting these clients. I remember the first $1 million listing I had. That was like the biggest deal for me, the biggest high. And then, once they say deals create more deals. So once you have that first $1 million deal and then you do it right and you market it right, other people really start to take notice.
Okay.
And then I think now it's, thankfully I'm in a place in my life where I do like living a good life. I like luxurious things. I work with a lot of, businesses, restaurants that specialize in luxury here in Houston. So that's kind of the lifestyle I try to portray on my social media, which is why a lot of those clients I think are attracted to me.
Right. Yeah. Did you deal with like imposter syndrome at all during that time?
Oh yeah. I mean, I still do, right?
Yeah.
I still do. I think I'm sure you do too, right? Anyone who's in a successful place, especially when you actually earned your way to the top and it wasn't handed to you or you don't have that family money, you're just kind of like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, do I belong here? Yeah.
And I get very intimidated sometimes, especially when, most of, the luxury agents here in Houston, I mean, they were kind of born into a wealthy family. They all went to private school together and they all kind of know each other. And I'm like kind of this outsider, the black sheep. Yeah. And no matter, I try to be as confident as I can, but when you're in a room full of them, like you can't help but be like, okay, I don't belong here and get insecure.
Yeah. I guess you would say networking for you is super important.
It is, yeah. But, my networking is kind of different. I think a lot of people would be surprised. I actually don't like people very much. Like, I'm not an extrovert. Like, I'm actually an introvert. So when I need to, gain my energy, like I need to be alone. I don't like big crowds either. And so I think a lot of my networking is like via social media. Like that's how I network with people. And I don't really like, large groups as much anymore.
Okay. Was being a minority and a female ever an obstacle for your success?
Oh yeah, of course. So for example, like River Oaks. River Oaks is, the Beverly Hills of Houston, right? The most prestigious zip code. I think I was the first Asian female to ever have a listing in River Oaks, right? So it's like, that's kind of how backwards and we are still here in Houston. And now it's been great because I think in the past couple of years, I've really been seeing a lot of minority women actually having these multi-million-dollar listings. But before, like it didn't happen. Yeah. And you never had a minority female broker, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you did, I mean, it was in like Chinatown or A-Leaf, right? Like they weren't selling in the, the popular neighborhoods here in Houston. So it's been nice. And, I do get a lot of minority female agents at my brokerage. I would say 90% of my agents are females.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, it's a large percentage, but it's been great just seeing them shatter, stereotypes that, would once hold them back.
Yeah. I do feel like nowadays, I don't know what it is about it, but I prefer a female realtor. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's the confidence, maybe the trust, I don't know what, but I think also with like selling Sunset and everything, I think it's created a whole like, oh, I want a female boss ass, showing me this house. So I think things have changed a lot, which is great.
Yeah. And I think nowadays, you wanted to go. Back then, it was like, okay, I want the agent that's been doing this for like 60 plus years. But now it's like people want agents that they relate to and that have the same lifestyle as them. Yeah. So with me, if young families, that's kind of my specialty, like young families who want to live in the city, in and around the city. That's my specialty because that's who I am. Yeah. Right. So it's been nice. I've been able to meet some really cool people through my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your, like, the number one thing you love about your job?
I think the number one, as a broker or real estate agent?
Real estate agent.
As a real estate agent, I mean, a lot of my clients have actually become my really good friends.
Okay.
So, I had a family that moved down from LA. They were referred to me, and now we hang out all the time. I mean, they were just literally at our house this Sunday.
Oh,
And we were just like
wow.
cooking steaks. Our kids are friends. And so that's really nice that I could actually build that bond with my clients and they become lifelong friends. I go to their baby showers, I go to their kids' birthday parties. So it's not just like a one-time transaction and done. I always try to keep in touch with them. It's hard to do that, in person, but at least through online or text or just like following up with them.
What about with as a brokerage?
I think as a broker, one of the most rewarding things is just seeing my agents become successful. And I think, they always say you're not a success until you make someone else successful, right? And I've seen agents make six figures for the first time in their lives, right? I had one of my agents, she always had a Porsche on her vision board. She just bought that Porsche, right?
Oh,
So that's really
yeah.
cool to see. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I would like to think the brokerage is helping them in some way because we do take way less of a commission than other brokerages.
Okay.
And we do try to offer a lot and, give them tools on how to build their online presence.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think most brokerages understand that yet.
Yeah. What because how many people do you have under you?
I have like 180 now.
What advice would you give someone who's like, okay, what's the number one thing you need to do to manage people?
Oh gosh. I'm still learning that. I think
Yeah.
that's been the hardest part because I've always been kind of a lone wolf. I always kind of ran by myself. And I think the hardest thing is you just have to understand that people are very complicated and people have their own stories. People have their own perspective and opinions, and you never want to invalidate what they're feeling. But at
Right.
the same time, it's, just trying to be as compassionate as possible, right? While still trying to lay down the rules and be a boss. But I think that's been the biggest thing is, just understanding that people are just very complicated creatures.
Right. I completely agree. I think with us too in our business slowly growing and we are interacting with more people, I'm like, the number one thing that you should not do is just assume, right? And overthink. But like people, we literally had this conversation. I'm like, people are so complicated. I'm like, and it's hard to manage people. You have to really, really like try not overthinking it. Try not, like I said, assuming things because you don't really know what's happening in that person's life.
Yeah.
So I was literally, you answered it perfectly because it is extremely hard, I would say, to manage a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think the thing that you can do as a manager is just let them know that it is a safe space if something is bothering them for them to talk to you, right? Because sometimes I have people come to me and they're just like they think I'm upset with them because I walked into the office and I didn't say hi, right? And I'm like, no, like I was just busy, but in their minds they're like, oh, like she's upset with me for some reason, and that's not it at all. But I think it's just if we communicate with each other and I can reassure them and be like, no, that's not it, right? Like I have my own problems I'm going through.
Yeah. Okay, outside of work, what is the number one thing you love to do?
Oh gosh. I'm working a lot, but I would say traveling. So we travel a lot. That's kind of where I really like to splurge because I
Okay.
do work a lot. So I really like to have and create these nice experiences for my family. We just got back from, a 2.5 vacation in Greece with the kids. So that was nice.
Okay.
We went to 4 different islands, just hopping around. Yeah, our kids have traveled the world. They probably have more stamps on their passport than grown adults. And I think that's our biggest thing, just showing them the world, showing them, how other people live and realizing that, United States, I think if you never leave the United States, like you think this is how it is everywhere and it's not.
And it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree. With your busy schedule and trying to balance being an entrepreneur, being a wife, being a mom, what is the number one thing you would say is a non-negotiable at your home? Like you guys either always eat dinner together or you always have breakfast together, or like is there something in your home that like is a non-negotiable? We do this every day.
I don't know about every day, but I think a non-negotiable is really making time for my husband and I, right?
Okay.
Because I think a lot of moms, especially a lot of working moms, they don't make time for that, right? It's kind of put on the back burner. But to me, it's like if you don't have that solid foundation as a married couple, I mean, that affects your kids. That affects every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
So whether it's, hey, we're going to do date night this night, or hey, even though I have work, I'm going to set that aside to watch this movie with my husband.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, and just constantly communicating, asking, how their day was, knowing what's going on. My husband's an entrepreneur as well. He's a tech entrepreneur. So just, asking about his business, he asked about mine. And I think so many people forget to do that. And especially I'm at an age where a lot of my friends are getting divorced, right? I would say more than 50% of my friends are now divorced.
Oh, wow.
And I think the main reason is because they just stop communicating.
Yeah.
And they just grow into different people.
Yeah, I did see that your husband did textiles, and I was going to ask, is it hard to balance both of you since you both are like entrepreneurs?
Well, I think he's much more good about having a work-life balance where he just cuts it off, right? He's like, okay, at this time, like it's family time. Because he's been doing this now, his company, this is his third company. He's had it for about 8-9 years, whereas my company is still 2.5 years, right? So it's still kind of a baby. But he understands, and he actually helps me a lot with the back-end operations side of my company, which is nice.
That's great.
But I think we both are trying to get into a place where, we're not getting any younger. Our kids are getting older. So really trying to find the right people to where, the company can grow and it can be good, but like we don't have to be so hands-on like we have been. Yeah,
because it's hard. I'm sure it's hard, but I did see you in another recent podcast say that your husband's been a great help, and you're very lucky, because I'm sure that's not... A lot of people nowadays are very selfish with their time, and they don't want, they don't check up on the other person, or they don't communicate. Number one, you need to communicate. So it's great that you both support each other's vision and dream and just want the best for each other. That's great.
And I mean, I see that with you guys too.
Yeah,
I mean, your husband's
we're a great team.
Yeah.
I think, we've been married, it'll be 8 years in November, and if I can say anything, it's communication and teamwork. You're on the same team. I think when people start seeing each other as like, well, you're doing your thing and I'm doing my thing, no, it's like, how can I support you and how can you support me?
Exactly.
It's a team. If you if you guys don't look at each other as a team, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and it takes constant work, right?
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people, they're like, okay, we're married now, that's it. And I'm like, no, like that's where the work has just begun.
Yes.
And it's, especially when you have kids, especially adding all of the adult stuff that happens as you get older, you just have to constantly be working on your marriage and constantly making sure you're on the same page.
Yeah, because we're always growing.
Yeah.
You've been with your husband how many years now?
15 years
And I'm
now.
sure you guys have changed a lot.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, if you ask him, he always makes fun of, the girl that he met. I mean, I was kind of a hot mess back then. I was still in the restaurant industry, and he would call me. I didn't even, like, my phone wasn't even working. Like, it would take me days to text him back. And we've seen each other kind of grow into mature adult human beings, and that's been beautiful to see, right? Yeah. The progression.
Yeah. That's so great. Okay. I have to ask, because I'm sure a lot of the girls want to know, how real is the show Selling Sunset?
Oh gosh. So funny enough, during COVID 2020, I was actually one of the finalists to be a new cast member on Selling Sunset.
Really?
Yeah, so I met all of the producers, I met the director, and it's 100% fake.
Okay.
So first of all, most of those agents, when they first started, they didn't even sell a house. Like Christine Quinn, like she didn't even sell a house. Like she was a model, actress, whatever. And so that was one of the reasons why they wanted to bring me in, because I actually have a track record of selling homes, right? And I'm not an actress. So they were going to create this whole storyline of, I'm moving to LA and coming in, and it's all fake though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's I mean, the brothers are real,
yeah,
right?
the
Like
brothers,
they sell
homes.
But I mean, especially like a lot, Chriselle, I think she's like an actress as well. Like they don't sell.
Okay. Because I'm not the biggest fan of the show.
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of drama stuff. It's not my thing. I'm a firm believer in what you're watching, what you read, you get all that energy, right? I don't care to watch it. The only time that I did watch it was really interesting to see the homes, right?
Yeah.
And like, I like to be very put together, and that was my favorite thing, the glam, right?
Yeah.
On the girls. I'm like, I would sometimes be like, these girls wake up like at 4 a.m. to do their hair and their makeup, and they're on these full glams. And it's crazy because if you don't really... I think with social media too, you see like, okay, some stuff is like, if you're in it, that not everything is real, right? But there's a lot of people who believe that that is like
Oh, yeah. And we get
100% real.
We get that all the time, and that's why I hate shows. I don't watch reality.
Yeah.
I barely watch television. I've never even watched an episode of Selling Sunset.
Okay.
But the thing I hate is a lot of these younger girls come in expecting that real estate is like that. And I'm
Yeah.
like, no, ma'am. Like, it is not like that. Even after 10 years for me, it's not like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of, agents come in expecting to sell $1 million homes. And I'm like, no, like we all start off from the bottom and
Right.
we work our way up to the top.
Yeah.
And the failure rate for, an agent, their first year, I believe is like 70% failure rate. Like most people don't make it past their first year, but they come in with all these crazy expectations of,
okay.
my brokerage is going to give me leads. And I'm like, no, that's not the way it works. We all hustle. We all get our own
Yeah,
needs. And
yeah.
so I feel like shows like that actually ruins our industry because now you have all these people coming in expecting it to be like that. And even now, it's not like that. I mean, I sell $1 million homes, but you don't see the back end of us trying to put up our signs, of us like freaking out over staging.
Yeah.
And most of the time, we're not glam, right? Like
Yeah.
we're just trying to clean up messes. And I wish they would show that more instead of like, okay, I'm just going to throw a Botox party at this $1 million listing.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to know that too. I was like, I have to ask because I know so many girls are gonna want to know that, and the fact that you know so much about it, I think is great. And that drama, right? The drama in there, I'm like, I would assume if you're creating like with your business, you're gonna be very particular about who you bring in, correct?
Yeah. So, at my broker, and I've been at brokerages where it's like dog eat dog and people are just nasty to each other, right? And that was one of the things for me is like, I don't want to create that culture. And that was one of the reasons why I also started my own brokerage. So, of course, when you have 90% of your agents as females, there's going to be some drama here and there. But if there was ever anyone who was blatantly disrespectful or did something, I mean, to me, I don't tolerate that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I have, people, I have my own personal team that I work with, but I've been working with these agents since, 4 or 5 years now, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
those are the, my personal team. And obviously they're a reflection of who I am, right? Because
Yeah.
when we're dealing with these multi-million-dollar clients, if you're not a reflection of me, or if you don't present yourself in the right professional way, that's going to hurt my business and my brand.
Yeah. I was about to ask, what is the number one thing I guess you look into when you're bringing someone onto the team?
I think first off, experience, of course, right? To me, I think just having that being polished, really being eloquent, speaking nice. I like people who's have actually worked a corporate job before because then they kind of understand how that world works. A lot of agents, they come in, they've never had any other job besides, waitressing or doing something. But,
Right.
I was in the corporate world for about 5 years. So there's a certain type of behavior and certain code of conduct that you do when you do
Right.
work that corporate
Yeah.
world. So while I do like to give agents free range, of course, you have to have that level of professionalism behind you, especially when you're working with high-end clients.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, no, okay, I've learned so much about you. Okay, last question before we end, because we did cover it a little bit. You're an entrepreneur, you're a wife, you're a mom. Now that your baby's 2 years old, you said that you had a little bit more free time.
Yeah.
What advice would you give moms who are really trying to hustle but probably feel a little bit of guilt that they're not at home as much?
The mom guilt is always going to be there, right? But I really ask my kids now. So my daughter's 9, and I ask her sometimes, I'm like, would you rather me stay home? Because she goes to a private school. Most of her friends' moms are stay-at-home moms, right? And I was like, do you want me to stay at home? But if I did that, we probably wouldn't have all that we have right now, right? We probably would not be able to live here. We probably wouldn't be able to take these nice vacations, but I would still be home. And so my daughter's like, no, I want you to work, right? And I think just, I was raised by, a single mom, and she, obviously worked 2 jobs sometimes. And I think it's important for me, especially having my daughter, that she sees a female working and making a difference in the world. And then that's really important to me, for her to see that and for me to be that role model to her. But, it's also important to, be there also for your kids, right? So I try to be as present as possible. Obviously, you know, it's sometimes hard, you know, having that work-life balance, especially as an entrepreneur, because I'm constantly just thinking of work. It like never leaves, but really just trying to be there for those big moments that they'll remember.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that because, you know, I know I'm not a mom, you know, I don't know if someday I'll be a mom, but I know that I want to be a great mom, but I also know that I love to work. And if I ever do have a daughter, that's what I want her to see, right?
Exactly.
That woman empowerment, that I don't depend on anyone but myself. So I think it's great that you asked her too. And like you said, you wouldn't have all the vacations, she wouldn't have the home. And I think as long as you're present for the big moments, and when you are there, you're present, they know that you're there. I think that makes a big difference. So thank you so much for sharing your journey. I learned so much about you. You are beautiful and you have just inspired me. Like, guys, this is a perfect representation of it's never too late to start something new. Look at her. It's amazing. She balances of being a wife, a mom, an entrepreneur. So thank you so much for coming on, Julia.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.